What's good, everyone? This your main correspondent, Alan Taylor, and I'm back in the broadcast room. And tonight we're discussing this 50-50 situation. You know, for child support, custody, all this type of stuff, you know what I'm saying? And so this lady right here is going to have a few things to say about the situation, but as men, we do know that this situation is a scam. At least most intelligent men do. And if you are in the system or have been in the system with child support and other things like that, you know that it's it's crazy. You know that it's crazy. So we're gonna go here now and we're gonna check this out, see what she has to say. Quarters, nickels, and dimes, people.
Why do men argue so much about 50-50 being law when it comes to custody and divorce? Why is the default answer from a man 50-50 should be default? Is it because of child support? Is it because you're mad that the relationship didn't work? So instead of recognizing and owning that you are still going to be responsible for your child, that you would also need to participate in helping their mother, especially if they were stay at home and now she has to get back into the workforce and she can't just go get a job like she would have before she had kids. So you're saying that that's her fault and she has to go do that, and that's going to become a detriment to your children, and it doesn't matter. See, men who believe that 50-50 should be default no matter what are also the same men who don't understand that they need to participate and be a 50% parent while they're in the marriage.
Okay, see, this is the thing right here. In today's society, the majority of women are not stay-at-home wives. So we can cancel Christmas on that. I'm not saying that there aren't any women that aren't stay-at-home wives, but the majority of women in American culture are not stay-at-home wives. That's the feminism empowerment, and women, wanting to work, things like that. Okay. So let's narrow that down. It's only going to be a few that are going to be with the stay-at-home wife situation, but the mass majority of women are working. So now this is the case here. If you choose to want to get a divorce or you having a child out of wedlock or anything like that, what I'm saying, 50-50 should be on the table. And here's why. Because, what I'm saying, it does take two to make a child. It's partially his child and it's partially yours. Now, to break this thing down is that if the father has his 50% and when the child is with the child is taken care of by the father's efforts and things like that. So like the mother, you shouldn't, the system is now set up to where the majority of men are paying, as we know, and things like that into the system. And also the system takes a certain percentage off each dollar. I think it's like 60 something percent of every dollar that men pay into the child support system that goes to other things, paying people, the judges, all types of crazy little stuff. But the thing of this is that the system is not designed to promote any type of family or any type of really community for the child. It's all about the money. Most men know this, and that's the reason why we don't like the system in the games and stuff like that. Now she's saying that if with 50-50 you still would have to help the mother. I mean, why? You should be capable of getting or having a job already. Like I say, the majority of women have jobs already within marriages or relationships or whatever. It's not a mass amount of women out here that are just stay-at-home wives. It's not. It's not.
Men who want 50-50 believe that if it's 50-50, they will never owe child support, which is wrong because see, child support is in the system as a mathematical equation. It is how much do both parents make and how much custody time does each parent have. It is not just because you have 50%, you are just responsible for your own stuff. And I know this because when my ex husband and I separated, we had 50-50 custody. But based upon the fact that I made more, I would have had to have paid him $55 a month for child support. He waived it because he was like, that's dumb. But I still would.
And that's what men do. So when the woman actually makes more, most men do waive that. I don't suggest y'all do that. I suggest y'all actually, take the amenities that, these women are gun ho to take and stuff like that. Sorry, but that's just what I think. That's just what I think. Sorry, but I get it. We as men, we have a certain level of pride and discipline and things like that. I understand that though. But yeah, though, I think you need to engage in that. Seriously. But and this is where it's at right here. She said $55. I mean, it just is what it is. But no, though, the 50-50 custody needs to be for really equal parenting time. The money, okay, whatever. It's really for equal parenting time, for that child to be able to spend the time with both sides of themselves, because it takes two to make that child. The child needs to spend a large amount of time with both sides, or as much time as possible, so they can know themselves and who they are, things like that. The father be able to take the child around his side of the family, things like that, and vice versa with the mother. The child needs to know themselves. A child is not a whole child if the child is only raised by one parent for a super large, significant amount of time. They never know the other side of the family and things like that. That takes a toll on the child. That's the reason why we having a lot of children nowadays with a lot of mental issues, things like that going on. They don't know who they really are and things like that. They don't know the other side. In majority of the time, yes, it's the father side of the family that they're not knowing. So they're missing a piece of themselves and things like that. Children and human beings are like puzzles. You have to have the full picture in order to understand what the picture looks like. You can't just guess and things like that, because if you have pieces of the puzzles missing, the significant amounts of pieces of the puzzle missing, you're not going to be able to figure out the picture. You're just not.
Would have had to have paid him, even though it was 50-50, because again, it's not solely based on a percentage of time that you have with your kids. It's based on income. So even if you have 50-50 custody and your other parent, the mom of your children, was a stay-at-home mom and didn't work, you're still gonna owe child support. It doesn't get you out of that responsibility. And then
she keep bringing up if the mom doesn't work, but lady, you work. And you just clearly said that you actually make more than than your husband did. So why are you worried about women that are stay-at-home wives when you work? Like I said before, the majority of women in society today work. The stay-at-home mom situation is not en masse, like that. It's not.
Another thing with this is that a lot of men don't want the responsibility of taking care of the kid. They just don't want to pay the mom of their child to take care of.
Wrong. It's not that men don't want that. It's that the system is messed up and men can't get the full custody or, the full 50 or anything like that. I'm tired of people thinking that men don't actually love their children. It's it's crazy to me to sit here and just let this go on. I'm tired of people thinking that, especially a lot of women thinking that men don't love their children. We love our children just as much, maybe even more than the women do. But due to the factors and the culture and stuff like that, it makes it hard for a man to go longevity with that, especially if he doesn't have a shit ton of money to really fight these things. And the word on the street and behind the scenes, well, men don't fight enough for their children. Why are we fighting? Why are we fighting? We wasn't fighting when we made the baby.
And what the French toast is going to think about?
We wasn't fighting then, right? I mean, maybe it was a little wrestling going on, but it was, consensual wrestling, and it was a little fun. But why are we having to fight over children and stuff like that? It makes no sense.
Their children. It's your child. you should want to do anything. The amount of men that I see that are like stellar fathers, and I'm gonna preface this with, they shouldn't be looked at as being stellar fathers because of all of the other fathers who are not stellar. And these stellar fathers, guess what? They co-parent very well. Mom says, hey, I need to get shoes for the kids. And he's like, you know what? Let's go to Target. I'll buy them shoes. It's not a big deal for him to take care of his own kids. It's not a tit for tat. It's not a, well, they're with you this weekend. You're going to have to handle it. It's, oh, they need shoes. Let's go handle it. And see, that's the difference between a stellar co-parent and a non-stellar co-parent. Is the non-stellar co-parent is, well, you know what? It's your weekend. You need to handle that. Guess what? He must be walking too much when, you know, he's at your house or she's at your house, or you got those dirty last week and you didn't clean them off. There's always a reason to blame the parent for not taking care of your own.
Lord, she talking out the side of her neck right now. And you know, the thing of this is I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not a certain amount of people that may tit for tat like that. Certain amount. But you know, the majority of men are not tit for tatting like that. You know, that just makes no sense. It's a waste of time. And you know, the thing of this is that a lot of women will, you know, do certain things to actually start certain emotional arguments or emotional tantrums and stuff like that. To, you know, it's like, okay, it's your weekend and you do this and that. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that either. You know, if y'all are co-parenting, then when the child is with whatever parent, that, you know, you pay, you know, for the child. Now, if the child is with the father and the father's, you know, bought shoes and stuff like that, when the child is with him and stuff like that, and then the child goes back to the mother, so why would he have to buy more shoes and think that, I mean, that makes no sense, or more clothing or whatever, snacks, whatever, you know, and vice versa too. If the child is with the mother and she sends the child over to the father and things like that, and the child has new shoes and etc. Like I said, you know, why would the mother have to buy new stuff? You know, I mean, it works both ways, to be honest with you, because it just is what it is. If y'all gonna have these relationships out here and y'all not trying to make marriages work no more and stuff like that, and y'all want these situationships with children and involved and every damn thing else, I mean, this is kind of how it's gonna go. If the child is with the father for a significant amount of time, yes, you know, he needs to be, you know, taking care of the kid, things like that, you know, buying the child, you know, whatever the child needs, and a little bit of what the child wants. The majority of what the child needs and a little bit of what the child wants. And it works the same when the child is with the mother. So yeah, 50-50 custody is best for every child. Like I said before, it's good for the child to know where they come from. They need to know both sides of themselves. And that's the reason why we keep having these fucked up ass humans growing up and getting out here in society, mentally disturbed, not prepared, not knowing who they really are and things like that, because they've only been with one side the majority of the time. And 50-50 custody would allow for a structure to where at least the child would have time spent with both sides of the coin and things like that. I mean, you know, but it is what it is, though. Shout out to all my subscribers. Mad love to y'all. If you're new to the channel, please hit that like, share, subscribe button. Make sure you ring that bell to be notified whenever I decide to post things. And like I always say,
and that, my friends, is the bottom line.
That, my friends, is the bottom line.